This is one of the most uncomfortable places, physically uncomfortable, that I've nature. Today on the Nature Journal show, I'm stumbling on my words and trying to do a landscape painting in a tricky spot. Let's see if we can include more information and make pretty landscape pages. This time on the show. 6:30 a.m. and I've just been crawling through this tropical scrub, cactus, forest, whatever you want to call it. It's my last day here in this very interesting but also relatively harsh ecosystem, and I don't know what I'm doing, but I've finally decided on a view, and choosing your landscape to paint is the most important part. I'm starting with my favorite gray ink pen. This is the Pilot Fudayaku. These have been discontinued, I believe, and you can no longer get them, but luckily I have a stash. I like this gray pen for setting in the basics, getting a little bit of the values, figuring out where to put things, but still going straight to ink. It's not quite as bold as black ink, and it will give me more options in the future. I'm going to spread things out a little bit and start a second landscape at the same time. This is one of the benefits of working small. If you work small, you can finish faster. If you finish faster, you can do more landscapes. And if you draw and paint more landscapes, you're going to learn and get a lot better. Also, it's a good way if you're procrastinating or putting too much pressure on one of them, you can switch to the other. I'm trying to get this linear perspective in with the curved trees, and now I'm going to try something new. I am going to add information about the places where I was on this ridge, combining map techniques with landscape painting techniques. This is a cutting edge. This has got to be one of the most physically uncomfortable nature journaling situations I've put myself in a while, just because of the lack of a place to sit on this really steep hillside. I brought my folding chair, but there's no place to set it up, so I'm basically just trying to squat here on this slippery rock material, which is really hard to get comfortable on. So I'm gonna take a break and just kind of stretch out my joints a little bit. Remember, your brain, your body, it's all connected. Sometimes while nature journaling, we can forget and we don't move in different ways or stretch our body. Now I'm back sitting down, holding my sketchbook, and I'm starting another perspective. Doing this helps take the pressure off of each landscape painting, and I find it really helpful for me. I'm also gonna go back and forth and, get this little whole different, slightly different, and I'm doing a very similar perspective, but by doing multiple versions of it, it really helps me learn a lot more instead of worrying too much about the pretty picture. Okay, let's go to color. We've got that gray ink in, and the color will work really well. I like to batch my watercolor, so since I have 3 paintings, I can basically paint them all at the same time. This is especially helpful when the color dries very slowly, like in humid environments, because you can do it all at once and you don't have to worry as much about smudging wet watercolor. So I often use the almost exact same blue for the sky as for the water. I'm changing that up a little bit here because I want to make sure I get the value right. Remember, value is actually more important than hue. So we think that color is all about hue, which is the actual color part, but it's actually the value that matters most. So I'm putting in now this ground color, and just then I saw a cool bird, so of course I'm going to make a little note of that here in the margin because nature is distracting like that. Now back to the color, let's get some of this green in. It's a very interesting mixture of greens here in this ecosystem. So I'm using my Serpentine Genuine, but I'm also playing around with some chromium oxide and even putting a little bit of white gouache. Notice how I just made the foreground or midground there more saturated and darker. And I'm doing the same on these two other ones. You have to think about that carefully, because there I just put really dark ones in the background, but the foreground should be darker, more saturated, and more contrast than the background. That's one of the reasons why I like to use a bluish purple color for those distant mountains. You can see there that they fade into the background because they're not very dark and they're that bluish purple color. At this point, I'm starting to run out of time, so I don't want to get lost too much in the details of the vegetation. I have to keep this in this visual hierarchy, in these sort of visual chunks. I'm going to try to get some shadows on this centerpiece cactus because it's a central visual element and it's in the foreground. So I'll put those shadows in, but I need to start wrapping this up because I'm getting exhausted from being here. So one of the important things for watercolor landscape painting in the field is knowing how much time you have, how much energy you have, and figuring out what you need to get done in that limited amount of time and energy. Oh my God. Oh, my butt hurts super bad from sitting on the ground here for almost 2 hours working on these nature journal pages. It stopped being quite so hot, so not sweating anymore, but it was a scramble and a sweat just getting up into this location, but managed to get some nature journaling done despite the discomfort. And remember, being human is not just about seeking comfort. There's a lot of more meaningful pursuits that we can do, and sometimes going through a little bit of a rough moment to capture that nature journal page is just what the doctor ordered. More episodes coming to you soon. Saying goodbye from this part of Colombia. Bye.